ancestors who were kicked out of a lot of places with violence across Europe until they came to the United States. This is a message that we grew up with again and again. There is nothing more Jewish than being against genocide. It is horrifying right now to see what's going on with approaching 10,000 children being killed. This is something much worse than I could have ever imagined would happen in Israel-Palestine, and it's horrifying to me to see it going on. And I hope that we can have a ceasefire. We're going to come together today with a very diverse group to demand ceasefire from the mayor and from city council, a resolution towards ceasefire that many other cities have passed to put pressure on the administration so that we can comply with simply complying with the Genocide Convention. This is not just a question of being anti-war. This is a genocidal act right now, and it's essential that we all come together and demand this urgently. Thank you. Anybody else? Anyone? No? Okay, thank you so much. We're open to taking individual questions. Thanks.
What do you expect to get accomplished by Hitler City Council today?
I hope that City Council calls for an unequivocal and permanent ceasefire, especially since Texas taxpayer dollars are being used to fund the ongoing war crimes happening in Israel. You missed this part earlier, but just in October alone, the Texas Comptroller purchased $20 million worth of Israeli bonds in an effort to fund and continue the ongoing self-defense that Israel is employing against Palestinian civilians. And then every year, upwards of $200 million of Texas taxpayer dollars are being used to support the Israeli military and their ongoing genocide of the Palestinian people. So it is a Texas issue, it is a Houston issue, and we're hoping that the local politicians will take it to the next level of politicians and thereafter to call, just to stop killing innocent people.
Now you have Texas politicians now that are saying that people that are criticizing Israel are terrorists, and are calling them out as being deportation or whatever.
I think I might defer that question to my Jewish colleagues who are very aware that calling out Israel is not anti-Semitic, and I'll defer to you.
Yeah, we completely reject this idea that being anti-Zionist is anti-Semitic. Obviously, we're a group of Jews, Jewish Voice for Peace Houston. We're active here in Houston. We feel that it is our Jewish values that call us to speak against Zionist military aggression, and so it's a violation of free speech to say that we can't be critical of our own government, let alone the government of a foreign power. We should have that right to free speech, and there's no conflation between anti-Zionism and anti-Semitism.
And then I will also say that calling for a ceasefire or calling out Israel is also in an effort to protect Israeli hostages that are in the Gaza Strip right now. A continued bombing campaign of the entire area also puts Israeli hostages' lives at risk. And so we are also hoping for their safe return and their safe return to their families, everybody in one piece, but that is not going to happen if a ceasefire doesn't happen.
The idea that it's somehow anti-Semitic to criticize Israel is a strange one. So, there are people that I know that have been criticizing other countries. They're not accused of racism, but what Israel has done is to conflate Judaism with a state, a militarized state. And in the case of when they call a Jewish person a self-hating Jew, that's even weirder. Then they've conflated what self means. Myself is a state of Israel with an army. That's myself. That's a crazy idea, but that's the kind of rhetoric that Israelis have heard all their lives. That's the kind of rhetoric that is repeated here all too often, and it has to go. There are people who are critics of Israel who are anti-Semitic, anti-Jewish, racist. Those exist, but none of them are standing here today. None of them are marching on our campuses. I've been in the anti-Zionist spaces for the last 25 years, and I haven't even experienced even one incident of what I would consider to be racism, prejudice against Jews, or so-called anti-Semitism.
Also, we have people within the Israeli government that have stated that this is not going to end until Hamas is gone. which is kind of a misnomer in a lot of ways. Your thoughts on that?
Again, I would just look at the statistics and the facts. When you have over 20,000 innocent civilians dead and over 90% of the people that you have killed, which they have admitted themselves, they've published those numbers. When over 90% of the people that you have killed are innocent civilians, and you've got less than 10% that are these alleged terrorists, how is that precise? How is that accurate? How is that self-defense? What is proportional and what is fair? And again, carpet bombing and open air prison does not save your Israeli hostages either, which I am hoping and praying for as well, because no innocent civilian should be taken away from their family or should be killed. That includes Israeli and Palestinian. So while I understand that mission might be important, to what end is it justifiable is what I would ask.
I would also bring in the history, and I would say that Israel already knows full well that carpet bombing cities isn't going to create peace, because they tried that in 1982 in the invasion of Beirut, in the siege of Beirut, in which they submitted that city to very much the same tactics as we're seeing now, bombing schools, hospitals, refugee camps, massacring civilians. Not only did they not manage to eliminate any PLO command centers or any PLO leaders, but because of that, you got the rise of Hezbollah in Lebanon and Hamas eventually within the occupied territories. So Israel has tried mass violence as a means to achieve peace before, and they only spawned more enemies. Like that's not a way that they can get to peace, and they know that, which is why we are looking at what they're doing and saying this is a genocidal act. The intent is not really to eliminate Hamas, because they know that that's not a tactic that's going to work. The intent is to kill as many civilians as possible.
And getting to intent, it is true that Israeli officials will occasionally say in English for their American audience that their only goal is to get rid of Hamas. But they're also saying some other stuff. So let's take a look at some of these quotes from Israeli leaders. We are too humane. Burn Gaza now, no less. That's the deputy speaker of the Israeli parliament. A quote, Gaza should be wiped off the map, coming from a member of the Knesset, from Netanyahu's party. Not flattening a neighborhood, crushing and flattening Gaza without mercy, another Likud lawmaker. And then I think in some ways, like the one that was most shocking to me, this is from a former Israeli general, but it was kind of tweeted by the finance minister of Israel, who said he agreed with every word, saying that epidemics in the south of the Gaza Strip will bring victory closer. So using epidemics as a weapon of war and terrorism against civilians.
Yeah, but wait a minute, though. You're using the words coming from the conservative party in Israel. It's not speaking for actually the people of Israel, because there's a lot of people that are against what's going on with the government.
Yeah, of course. We're talking about something that's being done by a government with an army. Of course, people love peace all over the world, and so I don't want anything to be misconstrued as a criticism of civilians. This is a government with an army, and they're using it right now for genocide.
And then I will add, and this is a great analogy that I've heard several times now, when there's a school shooter and they're committing a shooting at a school, do you bomb the entire school, or do you send special forces in there to get that school shooter out and take that shooter out? Is it justifiable to kill every student in that high school or that middle school when you have a school shooter? No, it is not. They should employ that same type of logic. And if their intention is simply to eradicate Hamas, why are they in the West Bank? Why are they in other occupied territories where Hamas does not exist?
And that's my other question, is the fear that the West Bank is also increasing the military and settlers that are attacking Palestinians. So it's just it's the fear that's happening also. What's your take on this, on the West Bank?
I mean, it's the same take I have with all civilian death in the Gaza Strip. It's unjustifiable, it's avoidable, and it's horrifying. And I would call on every politician to condemn acts of violence against all civilians, whether they be in the West Bank and whether they be in the Gaza Strip.
Thanks for your questions. We can keep doing questions with Richard or with Univision. If you need someone in Spanish, we can do that, but I think people need to get upstairs, but some folks can hang out. Thank you so much.
He just wants to hold up the sign.
Can I get some videos of the signs first before y'all leave? I need some B-roll. stay right there, look at me, all the time. All right, ¿me va a dar su nombre completo y título?
Mi nombre es Hannah, H-A-N-N-A-H, apellido Tallenberg, T-H-A-L-E-N-B-E-R-G, y soy organizadora con Jewish Voice for Peace, Voces Judías por la Paz. Hoy venimos a demandar que nuestros oficiales del gobierno local de Houston demanden un alto al fuego en Gaza y un paro a la asistencia financiera que nuestro gobierno federal envía al Estado de Israel para cometer genocidio en contra de los palestinos.
¿Y cómo puede ayudar a la gente pública?
Sigan hablando de Palestina, sigan centrando el pueblo palestino mientras los medios de comunicación no siempre son, se me olvidó, está en vivo, continúen hablando de Palestina y centrando las voces de las personas más impactadas por la violencia del Estado sionista.
¿Otros ciudades o estados ya han pedido paz?
Sí, de hecho, creo que Detroit es el gobierno municipal de la ciudad más grande hasta ahora a pedir un alto al fuego. Más gobiernos están trabajando sus resoluciones y la gente apoya la vida, quiere que se pare un genocidio en contra del pueblo palestino.
¿Cuál es el mensaje de hoy para los oficiales?
Alto al fuego.